Hi, YouTube. Brandon's stuck in a blizzard, but like, subscribe, comment. We give reviews of all the Power 5 conferences, and it's under protest. I will say it's under protest. We also had like a 30-minute
transfer portal discussion.
We did.
And if you had to fix one thing about the portal, let us know what it is in the comments.
Let us know.
And the only way you can comment is if you're subscribed.
Make sure you subscribe. The studio has changed again. We don't know what we look like, but we know we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here.
I'm coming.
Tuck's coming.
You think Brandon's mad that he's stuck in a blizzard?
I think it's like being in the rain. If you get caught in it and you're not aware, you're really pissed off. But like if you don't have your phone in your pocket, you kind of stand outside and like soak it up. It's okay.
But it's Brandon.
So definitely not.
So like, will he not be able to get out? What's the deal?
I don't want to laugh because it's like the holidays, so I don't want to be like, haha. But this would happen to Brandon.
Yeah. No, this
would.
stinks for Brandon. I don't even know what to say.
You think he brought his winter coat?
Yes, I will. It's Wyoming. If he didn't, that's
Katie,
on him.
you say that. He shows up everywhere without a winter coat.
He showed up to Philly with it.
And then
he's been wearing it.
Yeah.
He has been. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
That yellow thing, right?
Yeah.
He's been wearing it.
The big fuzzy
hood.
It's
probably not even like a real winter coat. I mean, you guys are from up here. You know that it's like there's difference between like a bulky coat and a winter coat.
Yeah.
Brandon probably has like what a Mississippi winter coat would be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looks pretty legit, but some coats the wind will blow right through it.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely what he has. So
but does he have to go outside a lot?
I don't know. He's also like he's been tweeting all at random hours. Like Brandon's going through something right now. I don't know what it is.
He's probably bored.
Maybe he found himself in Wyoming and is not coming back. The barrel man and him hit it off.
If he didn't have children and like wasn't married and had a family, like would it surprise you if Brandon just was like, you know what, fuck this, I'm gonna live on a ranch somewhere? Not at all.
No, it would.
It would surprise you.
He likes the attention and cameras too much.
Yeah,
you know what? Fantastic point.
And he likes to play it off that he doesn't, but he does. I mean, it's like ridiculous. It's like you're not fooling anybody. I get it that Brandon's really good at his job and he puts out a lot of content, but I think he also enjoys it too. So him going to Wyoming, he would get bored.
He would get bored.
I'm wrong.
You can only go, ooh, pretty view so many times.
He would end up like pulling like 4 or 5 people there to do content anyways. Like he would.
Would he? Who's moving to Wyoming for branding?
Katie, maybe?
No.
Not Wyoming.
Not Wyoming.
I do it for a few weeks during the summer.
Yeah, I could see
I'd be
going.
Like, I would like the view. It's pretty. But yeah, I feel once you have tried everything you can in the area once, what do you do?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And also, like, it's not like Brandon would be like, hey, you know what? I'll pay a big time salary for you to come. He'd be like, I'll buy you Chick-fil-A today.
I wouldn't even do Mississippi.
Oh, that's another thing about Wyoming. No Chick-fil-A for him, so he wouldn't live there.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Good point.
Is there none in the entire state?
Probably some in the state. Probably in Laramie. I mean, that's like, and then Jack. Look it up. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
They probably have a few.
If they do, he's Uber Eatsing it or whatever sponsor I'm supposed to say at that point. I don't know if we're allowed to say Uber. Oh no, we have Uber Eats,
bucks, as the kids say.
Yeah, we have Uber Eats at this company. All right, well, Brandon is stuck in a blizzard for the Arizona Bowl coverage that he's doing, but we are going to do a podcast anyways. This is our last podcast in the office until the new year, which is crazy. The season is over. So we'll get into it.
This is our last one. Yeah, in this office. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until you said it.
Because the office closes tomorrow, but
Katie's in the high chair today.
Katie is in the high chair. And
Good.
I feel like
But I think it's better angled because when it was back here, when it was us three, last week, I was like so much taller than everyone, and then Katie's taller than me, so she would have been much taller than us.
It's easier to look at her because like I don't have to look around you
Great
to
job
look
by
at her.
Noah.
I know, Noah. Also, shout out Noah. He brought us treats.
Yeah, he did it specifically when Brandon wasn't going to be here.
The mochi donuts. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. I've never had one before. Holy shit, those are good.
They removed something from over. There was 2.
It's the
monitor.
The camera for the producer chair. Because isn't that mostly
and then
up there?
There used to be a different monitor there.
Yeah, something's
that
weird.
You remember you could turn it around?
Yep.
Anyways, people don't care about that. I was in the midst of
it's
explaining
the
it. I was
holidays.
like, no one cares.
No one cares. It's okay though. But shout out Noah for the treats. Let's get into a podcast. And I guess, happy holidays and Merry Christmas if you're listening to this,
happy
right?
Hanukkah.
There's one Chick-fil-A in all of Wyoming.
There we go.
How close to Brandon is it?
It's in the lower right-hand corner. Oh,
That's close to
it's actually
Laramie then.
yeah. It's not. It's in the city over or county over.
You know he's getting it.
Because Laramie's almost in Colorado.
Yeah, it's like he would have to drive, but he could definitely do it.
That's why last night Alex tweeted, I'm like, go say hi to the people from.
I saw you correct her, yeah.
And then I was like, well, like that. They're in Montana. Montana to Laramie's like a 12-hour drive.
Yeah, he's
through nothing.
Like, look at that. Quite literally nothing.
So I've been to Jackson, which is almost in Idaho. Laramie's like Colorado, Nebraska.
Are there only 3 towns in Wyoming people care about?
Yeah, Casper, Jackson.
Those are the only 2 on the map.
And then Laramie's like a big town too, a city too.
That's whenever you zoom in. Gotcha.
You can tell the level of zooming in.
We sound like
you go.
I'll say I sound like such an asshole.
Cody's a known place too. And then obviously Yellowstone.
Well, shout out Wyoming and Brandon for being stuck there. Hopefully he gets home. But I guess he'll be back on Thursday, so we'll check in.
He definitely has too much Christmas shopping to do, and he put it for the last minute, and now he's not gonna be able to do it. And his wife's gonna have too much to handle.
Casey did some help with Christmas shopping.
Yeah, he now just. Jack, I think you witnessed it when he walked around the corner the other day. He was like, "Could you give me those options for my wife?" And I was like, "Am I your fucking assistant or what?" And he was like, "Well, no, I need help." And now he just puts it on me, which is fine. But I'm also like, Brandon, eventually you're going to have to start doing this not the week before.
I think I saw the gift that you helped him. You pointed out for him for his wife.
That's when he got, yeah.
Very pretty.
Well, thank you. I'd like to believe that I have nice taste with these things. Plus, if you get a blue box from Tiffany, you're happy.
Yeah.
You just ruined it.
I don't think she listens.
Well,
I guess we'll see.
I hope not.
We'll see.
I hope not.
All right, let's do a podcast. Hello and welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast. We are in the office for the last episode of the season in person. We will still be doing all the episodes. I think we're taking, one off this week for Christmas Day?
Yep, Christmas Day, Sunday.
Christmas
so
Day,
we won't
Sunday.
have a podcast that day.
We will have one Thursday with Brandon. Then we will have him throughout bowl season, obviously the college football playoff and the national championship. And we will be sitting around with family and friends, hopefully, most of you, drinking some high noon.
Yes, high noon.
Jack, Katie, Noah, you guys hopefully will be drinking what I can't drink for high noon. But it's a great holiday gift to bring people.
In front of us is the tailgate pack, 2 black cherry, 2 pear, 2 cranberry, 2 grapefruit. And that's only 4 of the 8 billion flavors that they have. So there's definitely a flavor for you. And there's a bunch of flavors for me because I like almost all of the flavors. I've gotten into the black cherry recently.
It's a good seasonal flavor too. That's kind of a warm feeling flavor.
It's fun, as the kids say.
It is fun. I walked by the gambling cave.
Flavor. Oh, there we go.
Oh wow, look at that.
Wow, pineapple, lime, peach, watermelon, grapefruit, black cherry, grapefruit, watermelon, peach. There's no lemon there, so that was before the lemon was released. We love the lemon. That's
the lemon
probably
is so good.
The hardest to find these days, just because of how good it is. But we love high noon, and no better way to spend it than near your Christmas tree if you're celebrating Christmas.
I walked by the gambling cave in the office today, and they were shooting a new high noon commercial for the Arizona Bowl. And I can't remember exactly who was in there. I know Kelly Keegs, Glennie, there was a group of them in there, Tommy. And they were just yelling at the TV, which I would assume will have the Arizona Bowl on it, with a high noon. And I was just like, at this point, we're so used to talking about it. They're all over the office. If you watch sports at all and you haven't heard of high noon, you're living under a rock. You're not. High noon is everywhere.
It's in every bar. I always joke when people ask. This will loop back around. When people ask where my parents' house, I say it's 35 minutes south of Albany because they are in the middle of nowhere. You can't even say that local town. I went back up a few weeks ago. That bar had high noon. I've never ordered something quicker.
Love high noon. So get yourself a high noon pack. New Year's, obviously, a great high noon holiday as well.
Something about these new studios, they're hot.
They're so hot.
I don't know what it is, but they're maybe the airflow. Within 10 minutes, I start sweating a little bit up top.
And I had Katie open up the window.
Yeah.
And all the years that we've been here.
Katie was masterfully put it back.
I felt bad.
Because we built our podcast studios on 7th Ave, which was a great idea. And also because New York City is just always having construction done. They're having construction done outside right now.
So far, it's pretty quiet.
It sounds good.
Sure. Fingers crossed.
In all the years that we've been doing podcasts in here, though, I don't think I've ever asked for the window to be open before the podcast room just to get an airflow. Like, that'll tell you how. I don't know what's happening in here.
Maybe they turned on the heat or something. Who knows? Whatever.
Who knows?
We'll
survive.
survive.
The set keeps changing. It's like the 4th episode where like the set has just been different.
Yep.
Like,
do we look
now.
like?
There's a plant now.
There is that is a. I mean, who is this? This can't be for our podcast, obviously.
I think it's just for the views.
Oh, so enjoy our plants, I guess.
They were just like, how do we fill space? Oh, plants.
Nothing goes better than college football and plants. You know.
I saw walking to the subway today. I saw New York, or above the subway, like they have the subway line, and then above it they have an advertisement, and they're advertising the college football playoff. New York City, college football town.
Huge college football town. I do love that the college football playoff is now, more people are talking about it than just college football fans, but also it's like bowl season is like already underway. I mean, sorry about your loss yesterday, Jack, by the way.
I know. I
hated to bring it up. I wanted to text in the group, but I was like, I'm not going to rub this in. Your team at least made a bowl.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, they just they should have made it a lot closer. They had a lot of mistakes. You can't win every Myrtle Beach Bowl, as they say. So, but yeah, you won't hear me talking about UConn football for a while now. It's unfortunate, but a great season, and I had a lot of great memories.
Great memories from 2022. So the
basketball team's really good. So
you will be talking about UConn, just not
UConn
not
football.
On this podcast.
Yeah,
well, it might sneak in. We are a year-round podcast. If UConn makes a run, you're going to have to.
They're going to. They're like the best team.
Yeah, so you're going to have to mention it. So we're going to go over some news. National Signing Day is tomorrow, so Thursday's episode will be really recapping that. But I have a question for Jack when it comes to National Signing Day and recruiting, because he is our recruiting stan, as they would have used to say. Is stan still a thing?
Yeah, Stan, yeah. I mean, They don't say it as much, but like I'm a recruiting slayer.
Recruiting.
Recruiting.
He slays recruiting. And then I know on Sunday you guys did some report cards for coaches.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, just the first-year coaches. Oh, my God. Is it important?
No, it's you know what it is? It's an alarm to check into my flight.
Oh, okay. There we go. Check into your flight.
It scared the shit out of me.
I was like, oh, man, I've never heard that ringtone before.
Well, my phone is always completely silent. Always.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Checked in. So we'll go over that. But then what I wanted to do, and I know, Jack, you mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that we should look through every Power 5 conference and do a little bit of a review. One of the things that we do as college football fans every single year is we compare conferences to each other after bowl season. So it's like, how many games did the SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, whatever, win in bowl season? The issue is, as we've seen, especially in recent past, is that a lot of these teams, either guys are sitting out, transferring, whatever. So what we do is we look at those conferences in bowl season and say, well, this is the best conference. I want to look at 2022, the regular season and the championships before bowl season, and do a little bit of a review.
Nice, yeah.
So of the Power 5 conferences.
Great plan.
So we will get into that. But first, let's get into some news if we can. And before we do that, the Ridge Wallet. We got to talk about the Ridge Wallet. You know how much we love the Ridge Wallet.
I love the Ridge Wallet, and the Ridge Wallet may be a present for some of my fellow family members this upcoming holiday season.
Well, I don't want to give it away. You said that I ruined Brandon's wife's gift earlier. I'm ruining my
Damn,
dad.
I think we got some new flavors on the site.
Yeah, I have some new flavors. What's Forged Ember?
Oh, is that like a special?
It looks like a combo.
That's a watch bundle.
Of...
They got a watch bundle now?
Yep, you got a watch, you have the wallet, and the key case, it looks like.
The valet kit. I've never seen that.
Damn, that's like that.
That's legit.
So Ridge is just... So if you want something like the Forged Ember, go look it up right now on ridge.com. You'll see it. It looks really cool. Like, if that's in somebody's apartment, you're like, this guy's cool.
You see the price slash too?
Oh,
so to get the wallet, key case, and a watch bundle in Forged Ember, which is black and red, and it's like speckled, it normally is almost $800, $790.
Is that a watch?
That's what it says, right? Watch bundle?
Yeah, I think you got a
Am
watch.
I crazy?
Yeah.
Wow, Ridge.
They're coming through with watches.
And they all match. That's so fucking cool. They all are like
it's
very
red
trendy.
And black for those that are listening. So if you want to look this up, I think it's probably on their front page or when you go to the products. Forged Ember. It's only and it's right now at Ridge. It looks like they're having a little bit of a sale.
Yeah, look at the 24 karat gold. You get a pen.
Jeez,
the touring kit.
They've updated the whole website since the last time we've gone on.
Since the last time I have looked at Ridge, they've added multiple products I didn't even know existed.
Now we're at the part where it's just the wallet.
I mean,
damn, Hawaii, Artiki.
Every time we scroll by, the puppies make me happy. It makes me happy.
Carbon Fiber 3K.
Oh,
so that's just probably another
bundle.
Their names of their watches, wallets, bundles, they're all phenomenal. Great job, Ridge.
Base Camp Orange. So we love Ridge Wallet. Like you said, it's probably going to be gifts for people, whether it's in your stocking, under the tree, however you celebrate Hanukkah, whatever you do. Ridge Wallet is, I feel like a lot of people listening have hopefully jumped on this. It's never too late, though. As you know, it holds up to 12 cards. It has RFID blocking technology. If you go to ridge.com/UR, you get the best offer with our link. And we're looking at it right now, right in front of us, and all the prices are slashed. Every single original price slashed through with that nice lower price.
I've done this before. I didn't do it this year because I planned it out properly. But like, you forgot to get the present. It's like, oh, you can make up that the shipping, like it got messed and it's coming to I reshipped it to your house. So you'll be getting it later. And you could just show them a picture of the Ridge. And then you can just, obviously Ridge isn't going to mess up the shipping, but you can just tell your not significant, although that would be bad. But let's just say your cousin or something. And Somebody. Carbon Fiber 3K is legit.
Also, here's a little bit of a take, which I think is true. Like, you get all your presents on whatever, whether it's Hanukkah or Christmas or whatever. It's not so bad to get one like a week or two later because it's like, oh, surprise, it wasn't done yet. So the holiday sale is up to 40% right now. So go to ridge.com/UR. All right. So one of the biggest pieces of news that has come out since you guys last recorded on Sunday when I was in Boston was that Bo Nix, Jack, will be returning to Oregon
for his 15th year.
For his millionth year.
Well, he's a podcast lifer.
He was a
freshman when we started, and he'll be going into his 5th year with us.
It is so. I know that with the redshirt rules changing a few years ago, and you only the 4 games changing, and then now with COVID year, everything, people can stay in college forever. It feels like.
I think Bo could probably
find a way
to stay for one more. Yeah,
because 2020 just didn't
2018,
count.
But I think he was a redshirt freshman in 2018. That hurts him.
Oh, he was.
So 2019, second year. 2020 doesn't count. 2021 would be his 3rd. No, I think he'd be able to stay for.
I think he could too. Because 2020 just doesn't count.
This next year is his last year because he has 5 years, it looks like, of play.
But he only has 4, technically, because 2020 doesn't count.
Yeah, 2020 is a wash.
Yeah, so 4, the next year will be his last, is 5.
Yeah, but then he can say graduate years. Like, there's the kid who. There's a bunch of guys who are on their 6th year. He doesn't have an injury thing though. This would probably be his last year.
Though. You can gray shirt. That's the injury, right? Do they still have gray shirts, or am I just aging myself?
Well, this guy's.
Well, someone else got
9th year.
Yep.
Cam
McCormick from Oregon, 9th year of eligibility. That's phenomenal.
He should be getting a PhD. Well, JT Daniels he hit the transfer portal too. JT Daniels can play this year and next year if he's granted an extra year of eligibility, which he'll probably be granted because he tore his ACL in the first game of the USC season back in 2018 or 19.
God, so forever ago.
And then the guy who replaced him, Keaton Slovis, he's going to be on his third school too.
Hey, the transfer portal is making it.
So JT's going to be on his 4th.
4th.
Yeah.
Damn.
4th. The transfer portal makes it so much funnier too, because it's like you get used to guys that used to have all the eligibility staying. Like maybe they transfer one time, maybe they go to like a grad transfer school.
Like Joe Burrow.
Yes, like maybe you transfer. Maybe you once you graduate from whatever university, you decide to go play somewhere else. Now we've just got guys moving all over the place. But for Oregon, this is huge, Jack, because, we saw how well he played this year. He needed to get out of Auburn to go there. Like, when we talk a little bit later in the podcast about the Pac-12, Oregon, obviously, very much in the race the entire season. Bo Nix, a lot of credit to him for that.
Going to be interesting to see how he does without Kenny Dillingham. the offensive coordinator that's now the Arizona State head coach. Without him, how will he look? We'll see. I think he really took some very serious steps forward, so we'll keep an eye on him this upcoming year. Did you see, speaking of the transfer portal, what the UTSA coach said?
What did he say?
So I quote tweet on unnecessary roughness. I think it was last night, right?
I saw it this morning too.
We'll
So
get
if
it
I
right
saw
now,
it, I'm
but
gonna-
he goes, hey, at NCAA, hey, dear at NCAA football, how does UTSA football, this is Jeff Traylor, the head coach, report Power 5 schools who are trying to poach our young talent? How much evidence do we really need to make this not be a part of our game? So that's a new reality. And this is he said the quiet part out loud. And I mean, even Power 5 schools, Jordan Addison got poached from Pitt.
Yes.
I'm pulling up some Mac Brown said the same thing.
And I'm sure everybody was trying to get Drake May.
Yeah, and that's where people who were like roasting me, like, oh, like he's actually staying. I'm like, no, I heard about all the poaching.
Well, and Mac Brown also said like he turned down a lot of money to stay at North Carolina. So Mac Brown said, I can't say who they are, and don't ask Drake. You know who they are. Just look at all the ones who are getting all the top recruits.
That's such an ominous quote, but awesome quote.
I love it.
When
He's
did he say
like,
this?
don't ask Drake.
It's been said. He said it a few things, like a few variations of it over the past few days.
Here's my question. You can't. I mean, how do you stop that? You can't stop poaching.
So that's the thing. It's like if Jeff or if Sarkisian or like the random guy hits up Drake May on Instagram. Like obviously Sarkisian isn't the best, but let's say Alabama, like the recruiter hits Drake May up on Instagram. Like how are they going to prove that? Like also. I don't know. Maybe they make it such a massive fine that it's like if you do get caught, it's really bad.
Yeah, I mean it's the tampering rules, but at the same
Drake
time,
May at this point, if he decides he wants to stay at UNC, and then there's an anti-tampering rule, he could then provide the evidence to the NCAA and say, "Hey, I'm not saying he would be a snitch, but
that's he would narc. He'd be a narc.
He would be a snitch there. I know.
Yeah,
but if there was anti-tampering, he could technically, I guess, do that, show the evidence.
I mean, him and probably everyone else. There's been a bunch of people like Austin Reed went to the portal and came back. I think that was more of an issue with Western Kentucky, and I think Louisville he tried to get pulled to, but
interesting.
He's not alone. There's not the
Drake
May's not the only person.
They're all doing this. I mean, you look at like what happened with USC and Caleb Williams. It's like he quote entered the transfer portal, but we knew exactly where he's going to go. Look at what's happening. I mean, you put this on unnecessary roughness.
What's the second thing next to 24/7 Sports? What is that?
What is that?
Oh, there's just square profile pictures on Twitter now.
No, go back. Sorry.
That was that was a squirrel
Zoom
moment.
in.
We both looked at it.
Oh, look, because it's a part of CBS Sports, they have a little thing next to it.
Do we have that?
We should get that. Like, so then on unnecessary roughness, it says Barstool. You see that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Elon making things interesting on Twitter.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah, we definitely could. I feel like you're not gonna be able to stop the poaching per se, tampering. I know that there's obviously rules in different leagues on how to deal with that. But Jack, and like you just said, unless an athlete, a kid comes out and says, here's a list of every single person who hit me up in DMs or whatever, you can't prove it.
You also have to make your initial, when you reach out and you're at the other school, you have to make your offer really good to ensure that they don't screenshot and send it to their coach and be like, LOL, look what just happened.
Yeah.
Or screenshot it and say,
it's an
look what so-and-so just offered me. What are you going to offer me to counter it?
It's an interesting divide, or like, how do you go about it so that doesn't happen? Like, it doesn't get screenshotted and sent to your coaches. Like, what if your rival hits you up and then, like, for whatever reason, let's just say Drake May didn't get love from the coaches that he got after performing so well at UNC. I'm just using him as an example. And then these guys hit him up again. But I'm sure they kind of do it kind of like, if you slide into someone's DMs, you kind of go soft at first, and then you get a little bit more aggressive. But
or you shouldn't just like.
Is it harder to slide into a girl's DMs or slide into a quarterback's DMs trying to get him to your school? That's the question.
Well, here's the equivalent. Here's what you would say, Jack. If you're going to slide into a college athlete's DMs to try to get them to come to your school, what would be the equivalent of being so aggressive of like sending a girl a dick pic right off the bat?
I'm about to say nudes. I was trying to think, is it harder?
I feel like it's harder to...
If the girl is in a full relationship, that's a 50-50 toss-up. Single, easy.
So it's like basically if a guy so Drake May, for example, if he's very happy at North Carolina, you got to ease in. You can't just fire off an equivalent of a dick pic.
Yeah, and also you gotta
or just send a picture of a check with the number open.
No, that's not a bad idea.
You know what
a blank check.
You know how I think they probably go about it? They probably sit you have somebody on your roster. Somebody on the roster knows Drake May.
Definitely.
You sit him down and you say, hey, we want to try to get Drake here. Let's see, can you reach out, see his interest level? And then you get connected to a guy who knows a guy. It's like the mafia. It's like you who knows the guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. And, Saban doesn't know about it.
Of course not.
But
no one in the coach's office knows
Saban's
about it.
like, oh, I like that guy.
So the way you get around it is you have somebody that's technically not connected to the front office.
Or the player. And the player where it's just like, hey, maybe you want to come through.
And they've all been to camps together. Someone went to high school. They played him in high school.
7-on-7 camps.
Like I went to volleyball. I know volleyball's not football, but throughout all the camps, I was friends with people who are at all the big schools now. Like you just know, I follow on Instagram. You know people who know people.
So
and then on a football roster, 100 athletes, right?
Yeah.
Or even grad assistants, or even
Or hear me out, girls.
Yeah, that would be very fascinating if they did it that way.
Think about it, because and I know it's like slimy to talk about because it's like already kind of like a slimy business as it is.
But I wouldn't do the girl thing because some of these guys are so committed to their girlfriend, they won't even look. They're like so afraid.
Well, Jack, what if they hired somebody like you that could give the background on the girlfriend?
Yeah,
and if they're single or not.
You have to make a plan. You have to make a plan.
Yeah, and it's like you're sitting down, you're making like a PowerPoint of a plan.
Like Trevor Lawrence, if you tried to poach him, you wouldn't go about it with a girl. Because there's a billion girls in his DMs already. And if you wanted to go about it with a girl, you have to go about it like, I don't know, like you have to appease this guy. You're a salesman.
Yes.
Or a woman.
Yeah, so you have to figure out what the guy would be most interested in reading. But at the same time, like when you look at all these quotes from these coaches, like I understand it's going to be a problem. It's a new reality, but I don't know how you completely stop it because the transfer portal is so brand new that this is going to continue to happen. If a program looks at a guy, like say they, any program in the country, again, going back to Drake May, knows they need a quarterback, what would stop them from being like, all right, well, we're not going to have our head coach DM him or head coach reach out to him. Somebody can, because we need a quarterback. How do we know he's that happy in North Carolina? You don't.
Well, that's probably why you reach out, right?
Yeah. I'm not mad about people reaching out. It's a business. It happens. I'm sorry that it's harder for the head coach to do their job. You're getting millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Cry me a river.
Well, and that's why I feel like a lot of coaches who are really good at recruiting and have been in the modern era of recruiting might not then want to evolve into this next step of coaching. If they're close to the end of their career, obviously they're going to try. But if you're so set in your ways, which is understandable, and then you now have to play this game, it's like being, married for like decades and then getting divorced and getting thrown back into the dating pool. It's like the dating game has changed.
And I think there's we may even see, and this may change, and this isn't me saying that Dabo's going to fall off, but I think Dabo's having a little bit more of a trouble adapting to the transfer portal than, say, a Nick Saban. Obviously, we brought up those guys that didn't really work out this year, Eli Ricks, Jermaine Burton, a few other guys that didn't really work out for Bama this year, but he still tried the transfer portal, and it was like, hey, sometimes you make big free agent signings and you thought they were going to be good and things don't work out. But Clemson, has Clemson ever brought in anybody in the transfer portal?
They brought back one person. I think Helinski, the guy went from Northwestern.
Helinski's back on their team?
I don't know. I'm probably using the wrong name, but I thought there was someone who went to Clemson, Northwestern, and then went back to Clemson.
So Helinski was at South Carolina.
Yeah. So then, not
45 years ago.
Yeah, then he went to Northwestern. And then his brother, of course, is unfortunately the player that died when he was at Wazoo.
Hunter Johnson, excuse me.
Oh, Hunter Johnson.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Helinski's brother.
Very sad.
Very sad, but their parents have a great foundation now, and I actually wear their Helinski Hope Foundation, which is a great foundation. If you do want to donate to anything this holiday season, that's a really great one. They help with mental health with the college athletes, which is a very pressing issue. And but yeah, Helinski, Hunter Johnson, but they don't go out and get they're not transfer you.
I also think that Saban's gonna have issues too, but for other reasons. I feel like people okay, I made it to Alabama, I'll play when I'm a senior, stick through it. I think that people, I think he will take in from the portal. We've seen it already. If I had to pick between a coach to retire earlier between the two of them, I'm picking Saban.
Yeah, and he's also older too, so it makes sense.
Saban, yeah. I mean,
I would pick him within the next 3 years. Five is the safe answer. 3.
I feel, Brandon said it. I don't remember if it was after the regular season or when it happened, but he said he wouldn't be surprised if things don't go wrong or if things don't go completely right, as in making it to the college football playoff and the national championship next year. He could see Saban being like, all right, I'm out. I don't know if that's going to happen because I feel like Saban's too much
3
pride.
years is an interest. Like, what would you set that line at? Would he be coaching in 2026 season?
And he's 70,
I'd
right?
probably set that at like 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's 70 years old, correct? I mean, he doesn't feel
He's
like
healthy,
he's settled.
though.
Yeah,
he
is.
seems healthy.
But
71.
He's 71, yeah. And
Dabo's
again,
what, like 58?
it's like a thing where it's like, do you want to go through this next evolution if you don't have to? We'll see. But
53.
here's and
Damn, Dabo's only 53.
He's got so many
He's got
years.
some time.
He's got so many years. But we've seen other guys go like so what are some other big
Well, Travis Hunter's in the transfer portal now.
But he's already hanging out in Boulder, right?
Yeah, but Georgia's like making some serious moves.
As well they should.
I'm sure Florida State's in there too.
We did the do you think Florida State would afuld losing him like that? I mean, obviously.
Oh, they would take him back 100%.
Yes.
Just be like, "Hey, we got it." Like,
yeah, we
also,
get it.
you play I made a mistake. This was always home.
yeah.
Like you play that narrative.
Oh man, that would be so
And
interesting.
you could just be like, "Hey, I always loved Florida State. Dion just blew me away, but I want to come back."
We did,
and they would take him without a doubt.
Oh,
You saw he played both. He's amazing. Well, we'll see how he does against top competition, but he was the number 1 recruit.
Oh, well, and the catches he was making all season, especially in the Celebration Bowl. I'm sure you guys talked a little bit about that, but we did the Pro Football show this morning, and we talked to Dion about, I mean, obviously National Signing Day is tomorrow, so by the time that show airs, it'll be old, but, he was like, yeah, we're trying to build a Madden-type roster. I think Roan set him up with that, but you look at guys like Travis Hunter.
Oh, wow.
What happened? What happened?
Iowa.
Oh, no.
Alabama flipped a commit.
See, this is the
that's not the other. That's a big. But Alabama, we can get that in a second. But Alabama, so this is why I lean more to Nick Saban being around. They've put together a class that like one of their best recruiting classes ever. And if there's these 2 kids that live near Auburn in Alabama, they're twins that are between Alabama and Auburn, and if Alabama gets them, they're better than your class last year.
Wow.
Which was the best class.
When you
ever.
say recruiting class, you mean out of high school or including transfer?
Out of high school, and I still think that's the most important because developing guys is the most important thing and getting them in.
So while we might as well just go to this then. So my question to you was going to be: it's already weird enough that National Signing Day has flipped from February, there's obviously still a signing day in February, but the early signing period in December being so massive now. From a recruiting standpoint, and as somebody who does follow it as closely as you do you think that it's going to, like, what would you set the over-under of years when you look at, like, we've also got all the transfer portal stuff happening now. So tomorrow's a gigantic deal. It will continue to be a gigantic deal for the rest of time because guys have to go from high school to college to play football. But don't you think at some point people are going to pay way more attention to what's happening in the transfer portal?
I don't. Possibly from a public perspective, yes. But recruiting, in my opinion, will always be the most important thing. It's the developing of a player. We saw it this year, like Alabama as the example. Like look at as they brought in Eli Ricks. They brought in Jermaine Burton. They all played better at previous schools. Getting a guy in, developing him, and making him a starter, and then pleasing him like that. It sounded weird as that I said
phrasing.
That, but that will always be more important, and especially just from sheer quantity size. Like you bring in 25 kids each year in a recruiting class. Transfer portal each year is probably 10 to 12, maybe. Depends on the school if you lose a coach or not. Maybe I may end up being wrong though, but I am firmly on. I mean, even if you look at if you look right now at who's in the playoff, and we're still early in the transfer portal era, but the teams that are in the playoff are recruiting behemoths outside of TCU. And if you look at transfer portal rankings from last year, like 1 was Ole Miss, 2 was Alabama. These were schools that were good, but
college football playoff.
Not college football play. USC, of course, was up there too. So that's kind of bucks the trend a little bit.
It's the reason that it really is very fascinating to me, first and foremost, because every time we've had recruiting arguments on the show, and like, of course, Brandon and I usually are siding with this. We never agree on anything, but we do agree on this. It's like, I understand why recruiting is such a big deal. Obviously, makes sense. But I care about when guys get to their school, put on a uniform, and actually produce on the field, right? That's the reason I've never followed recruiting outside of having to do it for my job. Now with the transfer portal, it's like, okay, you could get a 5-star guy in from high school that's supposed to have all this upside, all this, everything positive his way. And then he goes to Alabama. He doesn't play. He doesn't get to get developed on the field. He enters the transfer portal. And then all of a sudden it's like, so are they getting the 5-star guy that was recruited to Alabama? Are they getting the guy that was on the field for zero amount of time? Like, to me, it's like, when you look at this transfer portal, it's like, I'm going to get to see guys who have actually played or haven't played. That's more interesting to me than high school.
But if you get a 5-star and he comes in, you would get the first. Like, it's almost like getting if you get a can't miss guy or girl in a relationship, it's like, there's not a lot of the one that got away. There's a lot of, no, she got locked up because or he got locked up because the person who was smart enough or good enough to be with them locked them up, because it was like, you can't, like, if you have a I'm just trying to think of I'm blanking on names right now, but you have a 5-star that's electric, you're not going to let him go. He's going to play because he's good enough to play.
What about like Quinn Ewers?
Well, Quinn Ewers, the only reason he didn't play was because a high 4-star was playing him in front of him. So there's examples of that. Quarterback's probably the number one, because there's only one quarterback on the field. And that's always been an issue. Like, look at, you had like 3 5-stars on your depth chart at one point. They all left. I'm not trying to be, but like,
damn, Jack, you got to kick me while I'm down.
Yeah. But you're right. That is, quarterback will always be the probably the biggest issue, because only one guy can play.
I do think that when the dust settles for the transfer portal in a few years, you're going to see like the top 100 recruits, top ESPN 300. They're going to go to your big name schools. And the next people who they're good enough to be starting one day, they're going to go to the G5, bottom of the Power 5, and play right away, and then do the transfer portal to Alabama. Like how for college, you can't make your first choice. You go to another school you can get into, get the grades there, transfer in becomes much more easy. So I think you're almost going to be, the G5s, lower Power 5 will become a feeder system for the top ranked schools.
I completely agree. Also, that's, you mentioned Dion in Colorado. That's why, like, the people who are bitching about the fact that he might be taking a considerable amount of players from Jackson State to Colorado, I understand that it's like, it's the same thing when Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma, he took some players. Well, those players are also then elevating where they can play as well. So the guys that he got into Jackson State that played well enough to then now go play at the next level, they have that right to do that. If they enter the transfer portal and went to any other Power 5 school, nobody would be bitching about it. So it's people are going to have to get used to it. I do find the fact that recruiting is now so heavily, it's happening all day, every day for the entire year, but it's a weird feeling that it happens in the middle of December now, so much more.
But I will say, if you look at the rankings right now and On3, their team rankings, transfer portal so far, let's just remove Arizona State because that was a coach in and then a coach out. But those are some big names that are always at the top of recruiting rankings. So they care. Michigan's picked up a great edge rusher from Nebraska, 2 offensive tackles from Stanford, and then a few others. And then there's Florida State, UCLA right there, Oklahoma State.
TCU, USC.
Yeah, TCU at 5.
They
picked up JoJo Earl from Alabama. So, we have seen a lot of, and this goes to what Katie was also like. The question I would have for you, Katie, is, and this is more a broad question, is that good for college football? Like, is G5s just like, this happened to me. UConn had a great running back and now he's at Michigan State. It's like, it sucks, but you're not going to get mad at the kid. He's just trying to elevate his game.
I think we're definitely still figuring out how it all works. I think we're figuring out the transfer portal, figuring out NIL. When I say settles down 3 to 5 years from now, it's an acceptance. I think it's, look at in Durham, North Carolina, the Durham Bulls. I think AAA, you understood that those people are going to move on, but all the games are fun, it's exciting to go to. Then you have the superstars for a year. It's also recognizing it's a business.
Well, it's also we talked about it, and I think you said it, Katie, a few episodes ago. The only people that are loyal now are fans, and fans have to get used to that. This is something that everyone's going to be mad about. People have been mad about everything for every single change that's happened in college football. People yell, they scream, they don't like it. You have to accept it whether you want to or not. This is the latest in that. So you're going to see guys who realize, oh, hey, I might be better than I thought I was or than recruiting said I was coming out of high school. I'm going to go play somewhere. I'm going to prove that. And then I'm going to take that next step and go to a bigger school or a better conference. And that's just something that guys are going to have to accept. Fans are going to have to accept it. A guy does not commit to your school anymore because they want to be, and I say a guy, there's probably plenty of people out there that are like, you know what? I want to go to Washington and I'm going to play football at Washington. But that's not why a lot of guys go.
It's like, they almost have free reign though. And even in the NFL, you can't just be like, oh, I had this great year.
Right.
Unless you want to hold out. And that's reserved for like the elite of the elite.
And that's where paying the players is going to become a thing, because it's like if you want them to stay at your school, you're going to have some sort of contract.
Yeah, but then it's like, all right, if you want that contract, you have to guarantee you're in a contract for 4 years or 3 years. Like you can't just get up and go.
And that's where NIL is like kind of in the middle.
I thought we've seen stories of some players, like you get this NIL money if you're here for 3 years, if you stay.
But I think what Jack is saying is that like you cannot leave. Like say a guy commits to Ohio State, then he cannot leave Ohio State until that contract is up because he's locked in legally.
You just won't get the money.
Fair. Okay. Right. It's not just
and then
losing money.
Somebody like was at, let's say you're at Colorado, or that's a bad example. Let's say you're at Arizona and you're doing great. But they're giving you $5 million NIL, but Alabama calls like, we got a $15 million deal. All right, see ya. But if you're on the Jets right now and you have a $2 million contract, and then the Patriots call, we'll give you $20 million. The Jets are like, no, we have you under contract for 2 more years.
Right. So I think the way that would change, which will then take that next step in players becoming more like professionals in college football, is that the schools would then have to be paying them, because NIL deals right now, it's kind of free for all. Like it's just free range out there. If you want to lock a guy in and say you have to stay no matter what, no matter how much your stock rises or how much your stock falls, you then have to be paid from the school. And that's going to take a long time for that to get there.
The school's not going to be able to pay it though, because the people who are paying these deals are Katie just pulled up South Carolina quarterback Spencer Rattler is signed an NIL deal with Dick Dyer, Mercedes-Benz in Columbia. That's probably a guy who went to South Carolina, owns a Mercedes-Benz dealership in Columbia, South Carolina, and is worth millions upon millions of dollars and wants to not give back, but like make his football team better. Schools think about when you were in school. Like, if you wanted an extra $1,000 in scholarship money, it would be like pulling hair. Like now, like they don't have that money. That's why, like, it's always going to be NIL, and like kind of it's like a free for all. I mean, we could have this NIL discussion for all. Like, and I think Katie's point's the best points. Like, the dust is still up in the air, but it will settle.
It's truly the wild, wild west. Like nobody really knows exactly what's going on. By the way, that car that Spencer Rattler in was sick.
G-Wagon.
I mean, the maroon, the South Carolina maroon. Did you see? I mean, obviously you guys saw because you live on social media. I'm acting like you guys.
What, his quote?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
He's not going to the NFL,
he's
right?
done so much for me. I think it was a might as well play in the bowl.
No shit, Spencer.
Does he think he's like getting drafted?
But he's so cocky. He's the cockiest guy ever.
But I mean, Spencer Rattler.
That's what was my reaction. Was like, wait, does he think? I said in the tweet, I was like, is Spencer Rattler leaving? And all South Carolina fans were like, wait, what's going on?
But Spencer Rattler doesn't think he could get drafted right now.
Hey, if people think Will Levis can get drafted.
He may just hate college. Like maybe he just wants to leave. But you have to remember, this Spencer Rattler is the cockiest dude ever.
Oh, and he has been since he was, in
high school.
But I think everybody collectively looked at that like, what, Spencer? Like, of course you're coming back. Like,
congrats, another year at least.
I mean, he had a great end of the season, and they spoiled two playoff team hopes. But like,
I saw a great thread from I'm gonna pull it up. He's one of my favorite college football writers, Thor KU, on Twitter. Everyone should go follow him. He's like amazing. His name's Thor Nystrom, but he had this thread. I wanted to read it word for word because it was really good point about. All right. After early declaration deadline in mid-January, people will be stunned by how thin the 2023 NFL draft is. NIL has changed the process as we know it. So many guys who would have declared and passed have returned to school because they'll be paid more next year in NIL than they would have on a rookie deal. Long term, this is good news for both college football and NFL, which is good news for fans. The college product will be better as more players play eligibility and they get compensated for their work. And the NFL will get longer eval opportunities on players who enter the league less raw. Short term in this moment is causing some interesting drama behind closed doors. The secondary postseason exhibitions for draft prospects are experiencing an extreme dearth of prospects to fill their games. The competition for those prospects has been intense and cutthroat.
It's absolutely true that in the long run, it's going to be the best for both products, the NFL and college. There are going to be a lot of guys who, because we've seen it in the past where guys have declared, they don't know exactly where they're going to go. If you know you're going to be a lottery pick, you're going to be a first rounder, that's different. But there are a lot of guys that are told by agents, told by people, lied to in some cases, that they're going to be able to go. They lose a ton of money, sometimes go undrafted, and then can't go back to college.
Oh, the NBA only has it, right? NFL does not.
Correct.
Which is fine. The it's still you have to withdraw before the draft, but you at least can enter it, go talk to people, see where you stand, and then pull back out.
Yeah, and
the NFL needs it.
At the end of the day, I mean, again, whether people want to, I feel like it's a much smaller crowd now, a much quieter crowd. That people are like, oh, they're going to get their degree. It's like, all right, fine, whatever. Some kids are.
Well, now
they can get their degree and still get paid off of these NIL deals.
Well, now they're like almost like it's double. It's like you get the degree, which is a value in society, and then also, but you're getting an NIL deal. It's like Devin Leary, right? Who we just saw committed to Kentucky. He probably may have just declared for the NFL draft instead of saying, hey, I want to enter the transfer portal. But he went to the portal, said, hey, have a bidding session over me. I'll come and play at your school, and SEC school picks him up. We may see that with Sam Hartman too.
Yep. And the fact that they know they can make money, because a lot of times we've seen too where guys declare,
and you're still playing high level football,
right? And you've proven that you can play high level football.
I was fascinated that Max Duggan declared for the NFL draft. I don't know if that's in this.
What are your thoughts about him doing it before the game versus after? Because he says he's playing it regardless.
Yeah, that was also interesting to me. I don't know why.
It makes sense. Our Dawson, who talked about, he said that this way, regardless, hypothetically, if they lose, it's not like, oh, I'm giving up. It's not unfinished business. So now it's like, regardless of what happens.
Oh, okay.
There's also the element too where it's like striking while the iron is hot, and he's had such a good year, and he wasn't even supposed to be the starter. And when we interviewed him on this podcast, he even mentioned, he was like, I knew that I wasn't going to start, but I was going to continue to prove myself because TCU is in the college football playoff. He was a Heisman finalist. He had such a crazy year. Maybe he's looking at it and saying like, you know what? This is the time to capitalize on it. Because what if TCU doesn't have a good year next year? What if he's not on that pedestal again and he potentially loses out on draft stock?
Yeah.
There could be that. I mean, I know that's a school of thought.
Think about like Will Levis, right? He could have declared after last year.
Right.
But this year, he has draft stock, if you looked at on-field play, dropped as much as you probably could. But he's still getting mock drafted up in top fives, top 10s. So if you're good, you're good, and you probably only get better. All that being said, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of TCU saying like, "Hey, we're going with Chandler next year."
Yeah.
Thanks
for what you.
But that's crazy. He was like
the guy.
Like, why is it like what? Like he made it to the Heisman.
Has he spoken out at all about why he's made that decision, other than just saying he's done it?
Yeah, he was such a nice guy. He just like he dotted the T's or dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and said, "Hey, thank you, Horned Frog Nation. Let's go out and win the national championship." But like my time here is done. He is graduating in. He told us the spring, I think.
I would love to hear like just an actual like unfiltered thing of just like, this is why this is happening. But before
maybe Chandler was going to transfer and they were like, hey,
we don't want you to leave.
See, he's someone I would love to go look at the DMs of. Like you can imagine somehow every school has found a way to slide in. Same with Drake May.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like not even like the girl part, just to see how the offers of like people have said everything in there.
So Drew Pine is now at Arizona State. What do you think about that, Jack?
I really hope that he's their QB too, because Emory Jones is in the portal again too.
The quarterback portal. I mean, I think fascinating.
I think Kenny Dillingham could make me a good college quarterback. So like, I think Drew Pine will be a guy that like somehow it's like Notre Dame fans hate him, man.
They hate him, and he's
Bizarre.
an
Like, he
interesting.
didn't even play that bad.
Right, he's an interesting case too, because when you talk about Notre Dame saying, "Hey, we're going to go out in the offseason, the transfer portal recruiting, we're going to go try to find our guy," they told him that up front. They said, "Hey, like, thank you for what you did, but you're not our guy moving forward." Allowed him to then go to the transfer portal, which he should be allowed to do. And then now Notre Dame fans are pissed about it. It's like, your school's the one that told him basically to enter.
Yeah, I assume that I honestly thought Devin Leary was going to go to Notre Dame. That's like the rumor I heard. So when you see that happen, especially right after the season, some OC, the coach, was like, "Hey, someone's coming. You're not it. We're telling you now."
Yes. And then credit to those coaches for doing that. Before we move on, let's talk about Amazon Music, shall we? We love Amazon. I will say, Amazon is always on top of their game. They've spoiled us rotten with deliveries. They've spoiled us rotten with delivery times. And now they're spoiling us rotten with ad-free Amazon Music. Because if you have Prime, you can get ad-free music and you can listen to us. Unnecessary Roughness is now ad-free on Amazon Music. You get access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts. It's now included with your Prime membership. And I think everybody on the planet should have Amazon Prime. Probably a lot of people do.
Yeah,
if you don't, it's a must.
Especially for Christmas season.
I mean, I can't imagine not living with Amazon Prime, and I'm not just saying that because of this ad.
I was able to do so much of my shopping last night because of Amazon Prime.
But because you know that it's going to get there by the end of the week. I ordered something on Sunday morning, and it was at my apartment. Like, I was in Boston, and it was at my apartment when I got back Sunday night. It's crazy. Same day shipping. So go to amazon.com/roughness if you want to listen to us on Amazon Prime. Again, ad free at all your favorite Barstool shows, on the go, offline, wherever life takes you. You can start listening ad free by visiting amazon.com/roughness. That's amazon.com/roughness. They want me to read this 4 times, so I'm going to do it.
Yes, I know. No,
I'm going to read it. Start listening ad free by visiting amazon.com/roughness. That's amazon.com/roughness.
On Sunday, Brandon had the same exact reaction and was like, they really, whoever did the copywriting of this loved this line. And guess what? It is true. You can do that. Tell me.
You should listen ad free by visiting amazon.com/roughness.
Yes.
That's amazon.com/roughness. All right. So before we get to our preview, any other news? That's pretty much. I know some other guys landed some other places. There was the.
Yeah, Dante Moore is officially going to UCLA. I wonder if
that's huge.
I wonder if Bo Nix, Dante Moore, for those that don't know, is a 5-star quarterback, number 3 overall recruit in the country behind Arch Manning and Malachi Nelson, and then right in front of Nico Iamaleava, who's the guy.
Graphic.
But Dante Moore, he was like, at one point he was more heading towards Notre Dame, and then he committed to Oregon. Kenny Dillingham left. We talked about it on Sunday. There's a photo of them in Detroit probably like a week ago, putting up the O, and then now he's going to UCLA. I wonder if Bo Nix had anything to do with it. I'm not sure.
Maybe he slid in the DMs, Jack.
No, well, Bo Nix.
Well, he slid in and said, "Get lost, buddy."
Yeah, exactly.
This is mine.
Nick Starkle.
Yeah, like your ass buddy or something?
Your ass, my dude.
My dude.
Tate Martell. Jack, we've bonded over all the years we've worked together. I think our first bonding moment.
Your ass, my dude.
Was your ass, my dude.
What is he? I don't know. Like, what's he doing now?
Tate Martell?
Yeah, I got no idea.
No clue. You want to talk about somebody with an ego?
Go on his Instagram.
Also
a
nice looking
he's like
sister.
an NFT guy.
He's an FTX guy, maybe?
Yeah, I wonder what he's doing.
Crypto guy?
I got no idea what he's doing.
No idea. I mean, he was, let's see, Trademark Enterprises.
Peep to where I've committed to next. Oh, Sling. That's
he's still, if people are still buying ads on his.
I have committed to
1,000 likes on that. Go back. How many followers does he have? That's not good. He's done.
I love when Jack gets going with the.
Who's his girlfriend now? Go back.
After.
Go to her.
I'm looking.
I mean, that's a burner. That's just a burner. Your girl Han, that's just a burner.
Damn, she didn't even put him up on the main. That's brutal.
Damn. Although it looks like he's doing a lot of Instagram ads. I guess it's because he's like still like a name and he's like a good looking kid. So it's like people will pay for it. I mean, this is awkward. He looks like he's a prisoner. All right, anyways, we could talk about Tate Martell forever. So let's talk about the Power 5 conferences in review. So I don't know. I want to rank them because I feel like we always like to rank who the best conferences are. I don't really know what the best way to do that is, though, because it's like once we start saying that, all the arguments. So let's just go through just quickly each conference and kind of give like what I basically did was looked at the conference and said where I think that they stand going into bowl season. The example that I used to Katie earlier today, and I know people are going to be pissed when I say this, but if Kansas State beats Alabama this year in the Sugar Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, I'm not going to say Kansas State is a better football team than Alabama. I know they're playing on the field. I get that. I totally understand. Yes, in bowl season, if you win a game, you should be crowned the better team for that game. Alabama also does not want to be in that bowl game. Alabama thought that they would end up in the college football playoff somehow, even with 2 losses. Nick Saban thought they were going to end up there. And the fact is like even if Bryce Young's playing, even if Will Anderson's playing, which I still think is crazy, by the way, I will not sit here and say, for 2022, Kansas State is a better football team than Alabama. If you want to make that argument, that's fine. But when I like to look back before bowl season, it's like without the guys that are opting out, without the guys that are quiet quitting on the field, what did these conferences
the guy
look like?
in Florida from this weekend.
By the way, Florida, what the fuck? I know you guys probably talked about Billy Napier on Sunday.
And
that game was abysmal. That was disgusting.
No, yeah.
I mean, just no good whatsoever. So what conference should we start with, fellas? What do you guys want to do? What conference?
Just do ACC.
You want to start with the ACC? So that's the one that I feel like is
lowest.
The lowest, definitely. So the ACC, do we all agree was the worst conference in 2022?
From among Power 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's where the biggest takeaway that I have for the ACC is that Dabo has made Clemson so good since he's been there that even going undefeated in their conference, they go 8-0 in conference play, obviously lost the 2 games that they did not believe they were going to lose. But the fact that you can go undefeated in your conference and be talked about as a team that was disappointing tells you how high the bar is set for Clemson and the rest of the ACC. Florida State, incredible year. We'll see them play an important bowl game. North Carolina, good year. Pitt, not a terrible year. You go down that list, but even with Clemson not making the Power 5 or not making the college football playoff, it's still a disappointing year for not only Clemson, for the entire conference.
Yeah, Clemson's bar is that high that same with Bama. Any year the Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, you don't make a playoff, something went wrong. We were all very jealous of that. I would love for that to be my bar. But it's at the end of the day, it's on them.
When you look at the ACC in the last few years, especially since we've been doing this podcast, it truly is Clemson or bust. You know, we saw Syracuse have a moment this year where we thought they would be pretty good. That fell off the rails. Miami, complete disappointment. You look at, NC State having the disappointment that they did. But at the end of the day, Jack, if Clemson does not make the college football playoff, if Clemson is not, and right now has 4 teams, if Clemson is not there, it is a disappointing year for the ACC.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, that's correct. I think it's also, there were some disappointments in this conference. Wake Forest was supposed to have a great year. They went 7-5. NC State was supposed to have a great year. They went 8-4. We saw Florida State really probably elevate the conference to not being bottom of the basement. I mean, and then the Coastal, Miami season really hurt. Virginia had hype coming into the year, really hurt.
Syracuse and North Carolina fell off the second half.
Yeah, North Carolina. It's so Clemson's the main story always, and Florida State's back in the mix. But for the most part, the rest of the conference just really disappointed. Even Pitt, they ended up going 8-4. But
it is hard. They had such a good year last year, but you should be able to keep the momentum. You still had Izzy.
And it's just it's credit to Dabo for creating such a monster at Clemson that it's like he's a victim of his own success, right? Because how many schools would love to go 11-2? I can tell you, I know for a fact most schools would be like 11-2. We only lost 2 games. You'll take that 10 out of 10. But because they're so used to having the college football playoff on their resume, obviously winning some national championships, but when Florida State, like you mentioned, Jack, did a really good job of elevating. They were also very interesting. They have a lot of talent, but Clemson is the cream of the crop of that conference. And if they don't take that next step to be one of the top 4 teams, everyone kind of looks at the ACC and is just like, well, another year, Clemson couldn't get it done. And that to me is not good for the conference, But also, really, I mean, everybody wants to have Dabo, but it's shitty if you're Dabo too, because it's like, well, shit, I've set the bar so high that now an entire conference is looked at as a failure if we don't make it there.
If Tennessee without Hendon Hooker kicks the shit out of Clemson, watch out. The entire conference will be downgraded.
See, well, and this isn't one of those things. Again, I look at bowl season. If Clemson beats Tennessee, I better not hear a single ACC fan being like, oh, the ACC is better than the SEC, because this year that's just simply not true. You're also playing Tennessee without Hendon Hooker, who should have been
without Hyatt.
Yeah, like that. But that's what happens in bowl season, right? Bowl season is the epitome of, hey, look at us, we're better because we beat you in this one game. And that is true. I'm not taking anything away from those wins. However, that does not make you a better overall team, because a lot of guys are not playing, and even if they are playing, they might not be bought into. You cannot tell me that Texas in 2019 was a better team than Georgia was. They might have won that bowl game, but they were not a better team. But because they won, Texas was like, aha, the SEC. If Clemson beats Tennessee, which I think could happen easily, that game is so fascinating. I love the Orange Bowl. But Clemson fans will come out and be like, see, I told you, we're better. And that's just not the case.
And they just have to live with the fact that they could have had Cade Klubnik starting all year long.
But, and that's the biggest thing. So even when you look at these conferences, it's so sad to me that we only want to talk about Clemson, but that's the world that we live in. That's the reality that we live in. It is Clemson's conference for right now. Florida State's making moves. North Carolina, I feel like next year is going to be very dangerous. But I think overall, when you look at the ACC in review of 2022, Jack, we can say if Clemson's not there, the conference is the least of the Power Five, because right now they are the cream of the crop.
Yep. And I mean, they really, even though they set the bar high, like they should have beat Notre Dame and South Carolina, and they should be in the playoff, and that's on them. But they didn't. So
they didn't.
It's not even.
It's sorry for the ACC.
Right,
we are crowning the ACC the fifth of the Power Five conferences in 2022. Who would you put at number 4?
Probably still the Pac-12.
Really? See, I would put them a little bit higher, but why would you put them?
Who would you put?
So that's where.
I mean, I guess, you know what? I think I'd still put the Big 12, because the Big 12 kind of fell apart at the end. So maybe, Big 12, yeah.
So I would put the Big 12, which is hard because they have a team in the college football playoff. And this is where this conversation between who the best conferences are gets very muddled, because it's like, do you look at the top 4 teams and say, okay, well, if you're one of those conferences represented, you can't be a worse conference than teams that are not there? Or do you look at it and say, what did the conference look like throughout the year to get to where you were? For me, the reason I would put the Big 12 lower than the Pac-12 is because you had TCU all season. You knew that TCU was the team that was going to make it. And if they lost, which even when they lost in the Big 12 championship, we were still looking for reasons to leave the Big 12 out. That's not TCU's fault. That's more of just a product of the environment. However, Kansas State had a great year. They won the Big 12 championship. They lost 3 total games. They not only won the Big 12 championship, but they won with a guy who now Howard ended up being a better quarterback, but he was a backup quarterback. They lost Adrian Martinez. Yeah, but they won.
You could also say that they beat a team that had a backup quarterback playing.
Yeah, that's true. I guess to me, the reason I would put the Big 12 there, even though I believe TCU has every reason to be in the playoff, regardless of what they did in the Big 12 championship, we know that, is that all the competition that we expected to be in the Big 12 didn't come to fruition at the end of it. I mean, Oklahoma is a main example. I think most of us beginning of the season said Oklahoma is going to be right up there. They had a horrible season. They went 6-6. Oklahoma fans can argue that if they want. Terrible season. Texas, when Quinn Ewers got hurt, very disappointing for that injury. But yeah, it wasn't perfect. When you look at the Big 12 before the season, you wouldn't have said it's going to be TCU, Kansas State, and those are going to be the teams that are in it at the end. You would have at least had one or the other, I believe, of Texas and Oklahoma. TCU deserves to be there, but overall, the Big 12 was a disappointment, I think.
Would you say that just looking at Texas and Oklahoma for expectations versus where they actually were, just by those two, I feel that's more disappointing than the schools we thought were going to be good in the ACC?
Absolutely.
Texas and Oklahoma at a much higher ceiling than what we thought of than NC State, of UNC, of Syracuse. Those are like, okay, cool. They might have some momentum maybe ranked like we thought Texas and Oklahoma would be like top 10.
I agree with that, and also because
they started the season there.
Yes, and that's the thing is like we talk about the ACC like we just did and say it's Clemson, they're the cream of the crop. If Clemson's not there, who's going to be there? We don't know. Maybe Florida State in the next couple of years, maybe North Carolina, whatever. The Big 12, you have a team that some people, Jack, you expected it. A lot of people did not. TCU being the third ranked team in the country going to the playoff, but you always expect Oklahoma there. You always expect to see Texas in the mix.
Oh, like Texas was kind of in the mix, but Oklahoma wasn't even there.
Right.
Like they weren't even, they weren't even close to being there. One of the biggest disappointments of the season. Even Baylor took a step back, which a lot of us predicted. I mean, West Virginia really looked like a team that a lot of people thought was going to be a surprise, but they didn't turn out to be anything. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's that much separating the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12, to be completely honest. But I also think, like, yes, there was teams that fell off, but the teams that elevated themselves, even though, like, I thought highly of TCU, Katie thought highly of Kansas State, those schools skyrocketing up did help the conference.
Absolutely, because it's the polar opposite of what we've been seeing in the ACC since Dabo made that a dynasty, is that there's room for other teams in the Big 12 to elevate to be in the national scene, where in the ACC it hasn't gotten to that point yet. So the waters haven't completely balanced out yet. I just think that when you look at the Big 12, now I will say one of the best things the Big 12 has done, and a lot of people didn't like it, and now we're moving more towards that in other Power 5 conferences, is them not having divisions because they couldn't after a certain amount of realignment. That's made it so much more interesting because we knew that down to the Big 12 championship, it was TCU's conference to lose, but it wasn't just like, oh, well, if TCU loses, then it's completely done, because it wasn't like what we've seen in the Big 10. I do love what TCU was able to do. We'll see what happens in the playoff.
If Kansas State beat Tulane, was 10 and it was 11-2 and beat TCU, I think they would have had a lot more of a conversation about themselves within the playoff than they did. So Kansas State's a really, really great team, and obviously we know that. But I still think I'm solidifying Big 12 in my fourth as well.
I think that's the safe bet. Also, you talk about Kansas State. We make fun of Alabama and Nick Saban for trying to make the case with 2 losses because they weren't playing in the SEC championship. They wouldn't get to avenge those losses. Kansas State avenging the TCU loss and had not, again, that's why we play the games, and had not lost to Tulane, they should have been in the playoff even with those 2 losses because they were able to avenge that loss, right?
Who, Kansas State?
Like if they, in a hypothetical world. Yes, in a hypothetical world.
Well, then the loss to Texas would have hurt.
Yes. But I do think that when you look at what Kansas State was able to do, and Will Howard looking the way that he did by the end of the season. So Big 12 at number 4.
And also a shout out to Alabama for everyone's playing in that game. We get on like Alabama a lot. It's nice to see. That's going to be a great game.
And same with Kansas State, too.
Everyone's playing. Yeah.
It's going to be a great game.
I think the coach. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Katie
Kleiman said, he's like, I don't expect any opt-outs. Full
that
force.
Game, and I use it as my example of why if Kansas State beats Alabama, that I wouldn't say they're a better football team overall. If Bryce Young and Will Anderson and all those guys, like I mentioned, play the entire game, then you have a different argument. I feel like Alabama is just the epitome of the team that we're going to look back at, after the new year and just be like, guys, they just didn't want to be there, which might be a bullshit excuse. And I understand that, but that's the way that feels. So, okay, Big 12, number 4. So we're going to put Pac-12 at number 3.
Yeah.
I can make an argument.
Well, you can make an argument that the Big 10 should be here.
That I was about to say, I don't feel too strongly about it to like make it that big a point, but
Let's put the Big 10 here.
See, I was gonna say I could make the argument, which is crazy.
SEC.
I could put the SEC at 3rd.
I feel if Brandon was here, he would put SEC West there.
I could put, because of how good Georgia is, you can't put them at number 3. You just simply can't because of how good, and obviously Tennessee was there. But the reason that I look at the Pac-12 and I'm very torn on it is because the Pac-12 late in November still had the most teams in the college football rankings. Now I understand that's because of who they were playing each other in their conference. But when you look at USC, Washington, Utah, Oregon, UCLA, all of those teams were still in the mix late into the season. It's hard for me to say that the Pac-12 would be worse than a conference like the SEC, where you knew Georgia's the behemoth, Georgia's Goliath, Georgia's the monster. That's fine. But outside of Georgia, once Hendon Hooker got hurt, it was like, okay, well, now what?
It's also like my eye test is, does that team scare me? If UNC is, obviously it's UNC, everyone has their own team, like get paired up with them in a bowl game, do I go, oh fuck, I did that for Oregon? Like, I don't do that for a lot of Big Ten teams.
Well, we're also talking about how like, oh man, like Clemson had all these great high expectations and so unfair, but then they went 11-2, but they didn't lose a conference game. But then when they played the SEC, they lost. Right. And they didn't play the best team in the SEC. And that team beat Tennessee with a healthy Hendon Hooker too. So I'm still, not to ruin it, but
no, I'm not.
SEC's still my number one conference.
I'm not, and I'm not going to put the SEC there, but I do feel like the argument is to be made. But then but that's where I look at Georgia, Oregon.
The Big Ten's so bad.
But they have two teams. That's the problem. See, this is where the argument starts to get very, very, into the semantics, because it's like, can you say that the team the conference that has two teams in the college football playoff was third in the country? I don't feel like I can. However, when you look at the Big Ten and you look at the Big Ten West and just how absolutely abysmal it is, and you look at the Big Ten East, you have Michigan, Ohio State. Then, of course, and when we talk about the Big Ten, we might as well just go ahead and do that as well. Like, we shit on Penn State all year. I know Brandon and I definitely did. Jack, you stood up for Penn State a lot. I mean, Penn State lost 2 games, and their 2 games they lost are to teams that are playing for a national title, potentially. So outside of Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, yes, the Big Ten is not very good. But can you look at a conference that had 2 teams good enough to make it in and say, well, they're not as good as another conference?
I think the bad outweighs the good for this one for me.
I mean, look at this conference.
Oh, it's not good. It's definitely not good.
The entire Big Ten West is not
garbage.
Good.
It's absolute garbage. I mean,
at least Georgia played LSU, beat Alabama, that we almost put in the playoff. Like Purdue, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Like Rutgers stinks. Indiana stinks.
They do.
Michigan State stinks. But Maryland only won 7-5. The top of the top is great. I think those are 3 really top 10 talented or top 10 teams. If we had to rank them, obviously Penn State's 11, but they're like a top 10 team in my mind. Outside of that, they have nothing.
Nothing. But their top is so top heavy that it's hard to ignore that in a season where, because all the jokes are, right? Every time we get into it, there's the SEC bias. Oh, yeah. Well, the college football playoff committee is going to do anything they can to get 2 SEC teams in. Well, now we're seeing a scenario where they could have put 2 SEC teams in. It would have been ridiculous if they did, but they put in Michigan and Ohio State. And regardless of how you feel about Ohio State being there, which I have said, I don't believe that you should be able to lose to your rival in the last weekend of the regular season the way that they did, not play for a conference championship and be rewarded. However, everything else that happened allowed them to be in. I think so. So let's make a decision here. So who are we putting at third? Who are you guys voting? Because it'll be
Big Ten.
I'm doing Big Ten.
Damn, I would have put Pac-12. I could have made the argument the SC, but you guys 2 against 1. So we'll put Big Ten.
I mean, Northwestern's in this conference. Like, they're worse. Like, if Northwestern and Colorado played, like, Northwestern won 1 game, and it was the week 0 in a different country. They scored 104 points this year. Rutgers scored 105 points this year. Rutgers is so bad. It's not talked about enough how bad Rutgers is.
Well, you also hate Rutgers.
It's also like, we're talking about the conference
as
a
love
whole. It's like if your team had to play a Big Ten team, roulette, and you pull one team out.
That's the best way to look at it.
It is.
The vast majority of the ones you're picking out is going to be a win.
I see that point of it, and that's where I completely agree with that rationale, and that is a logical argument. I look at it more as when you look at the best teams in the country, and right now we only get to see 4. I can't wait till there's 12 because this argument's going to be completely different. Because once again, the people that don't want to see this happen, it's like, well, who's the better conference? Well, we'll see it play out on the field,
folks.
You
are right. Like, as you were talking, it clicked in my mind. Like, there's a chance we just ranked the conference the third best conference in the country, and there's going to be a national championship game between the two best teams in the conference.
That's why I can't put them there.
It is crazy, but I still think, like, look at how bad it is, man.
It's
like,
so
look
bad.
What happened last year.
Well, that was SEC, and then everyone's ranked them first.
No, I'm saying so Michigan getting their shit kicked in by Georgia in the semis.
Yes, but there's now
that Georgia team was amazing. Right?
I mean, that's why when I talk about the SEC,
but if Georgia kicks the shit in on
Ohio State,
and then like if Michigan loses to TCU, then we may put them like.
Oh well, so by the way, if that does happen, which I don't think anybody thinks.
No, I'm not saying that's going to happen.
But,
I was just like,
but if it does, you guys should definitely clip this out and be like, "See, we tried to tell you guys." Neither one of them are there. It's hard for me to take two teams that could play for a national championship against each other and say that the Big Ten is the worst or is the third best conference in the country. However, you're right. If you pull out a random team, if you pull out Indiana, you might not be scared of them. But I feel like you can make that argument in the SEC right now.
I mean, Kentucky goes undefeated in the Big Ten West.
Well, the Big Ten, I've said this a million times. I'm a broken record. I understand if you're in the Big Ten and you're a fan of the Big Ten West of a school. Like, I know Dan with Wisconsin. He's like, I like the divisions.
They're usually good. They're usually good.
Yeah. Right.
And I was usually like,
you have to get rid of divisions in the Big Ten to make it more.
Oh, sorry. Even. I said Rutgers scored 105 points overall. I meant in conference. I apologize. That's still pathetic.
It is. Yes, it is.
They gave up 309 too, the most in the conference.
Rutgers is not good.
Or 310 for Indiana.
But don't you
Michigan
agree?
State 5-7.
Who had a more disappointing year, Michigan State or Oklahoma?
Oklahoma. Michigan State, I think, like, if you told everyone they won 8-4 and kind of like fell out of the top 25, they weren't that far off from that either. Like, they had some close losses. I've been just like, for whatever reason, I guess the fans are bored. I've been in the mud with like Michigan State fans the past 24 hours. Like, it's crazy. Like, people are like calling me inbred. It's crazy. Most of the Michigan State fans I have muted. Like, they tweet into like an internal.
You hit a new layer.
Like, of nothing. Nobody sees it. Like, it's just void. Like they just tweet into a void. Like, they yell at me. They call me like an inbred but they just tweet into a void. But there's more people that like, they got new forces. Like,
Jack, it's the time of year where
burner season.
Burner season. You know, you never know who's behind those burners. I will say that I've noticed that as well. So I had Texas fans today dig up a tweet from Unnecessary Roughness from, I believe it was May, maybe end of April, early May, where we did like a Homer episode. Do you remember when we were supposed to give our most Homer takes? And they dug up a clip that you guys put out where I said, on this date, A&M is going to win the SEC. And they're all like, tweeting it now.
And
like,
Brandon like forced you out of that.
He definitely forced me out of it. But to your point, fans are bored right now because a lot of these teams aren't playing for shit.
Well,
it's the holidays.
Michigan State, they're not in a bowl game.
Yeah, like they're bored, so they're looking for things to be mad at right now. So this is the bored season.
Oklahoma fans were so mad that we rated Brent Venables an F. They were so mad. People were responding. Unnecessary Roughness Twitter account grade F-. Like, just by like the numbers alone, that's not true.
It was that you posted that when I was traveling back from Boston. And I was like, oh boy, I'm about to go get my popcorn and read these responses. I could not have been laughing harder at the fact that they are still trying to argue that they had a decent season because it's the first year with Brent Venables. We've seen first year coaches at Kansas.
That was my point for Sunday. I was like, it's because of Lance. It's because of Sonny Dykes, of Lincoln Riley. The bar for first-year head coaches is moved. If we don't have the transfer portal, 6-6 first-year head coach, fine. You know what? Rebuilding year. Like, look, Brent Pry. Brent Pry is what we expected of a first-year head coach. Now, because of the ones who are overperforming, that's the bar.
I would be interested to hear what those Oklahoma fans. I'm sure that none of them were nice enough or cordial enough to have the conversation.
No, they're like incredibly mean. It's
what
like
would
they can't.
Oh well, people are just fucking mean on the internet.
But they can't like. I can't say Brent Venables had an F season without being called like all sorts of names. It's like you can be like, I disagree. These are the reasons, and I'd be like, oh yeah, fine. Like, I actually don't But the people that actually do that actually have their name in their profile, actually have their face.
Well, yeah.
It's not the OU Boomer Sooner like a fan account that. Yeah, it's crazy. It's
crazy.
like it's the internet dichotomy. I mean, like I don't want to make fun of them too much because like a lot of fans of ours who will listen and have accounts like that. I'm not saying you're mean, but because
No, some of them are mean.
it's just crazy. It's a crazy way to live life. It's just like they're like, look at the two most unathletic guys, like grading Brent Venables. It's like, first of all, we haven't pretended to be athletic. Second of all, Brandon played JUCO basketball.
Duh.
Third, I was JV MVP. Fourth, that has nothing to do with this. You went 6-6 with a really talented roster.
That's my question: is what would they grade him?
I was like, we're holding Oklahoma to higher standards. You're welcome.
Right.
Yes.
What would they grade him then? That's my question. I understand. Like I know Brandon gave him. What did he say? A straight D. I was like, oh my god.
I bet it's a sibling thing. Like we're allowed to make fun of them, but you're not.
Oh, absolutely. However, truth serum time. Put your real face in your real name.
They're all having like, circle jerks about how it's like, we almost won 8-4 or 7-5 in Lincoln Riley's last year. So like 6-6 this year isn't that bad. It's like
ridiculous.
Like that doesn't happen at Oklahoma.
No, and that's where
the
boredom comes in.
Chosen one.
Well, they still think that.
You were the chosen one.
The chosen one. Before we get to the rest of the reviews, let's talk about something that sounds so delicious right now. I'm going to be honest. These pregnancy hormones, they be hitting. Noah brought in delicious snacks, delicious desserts, delicious pastries. I ate it backwards. I had my dessert first. Now I want Pizza Hut.
Ooh, you told us.
I
but
want
this isn't
some
the first
Pizza
time
Hut.
either.
No, I've been talking about Pizza Hut ever since the Barstool Invitational, where Pizza Hut was all over the TV. I've been craving their stuffed crust. They are the OG stuffed crust for me. You get a good pizza with that cheesy stuffed crust, but now they've got the pizza melt, which is not pizza at all, but it's delicious. I mean, it's crispy, it's cheesy, it's loaded.
Oh, don't look up there.
No, I can't. If I look up there, I'm going to start seeing.
Katie's torturing.
I pulled up a photo of the melt.
So they have melts. I had one of the melts recently, and then the marinara like on the side that you dip it in.
Talk dirty
It's
to
amazing.
me.
Yes, no. And the wings are great too. I mean, you can get Pizza Hut left and right all over the country.
Look at that picture of the stuffed crust. Katie, go up. Look at that. All the way on the right.
The cheese bowl's insane.
It is the OG. Stuffed crust one, you get a large pizza for $12.99.
I don't
this
eat crust.
day and age.
I'm not a crust person. I think most of them are dry. It's hard to do right. But Pizza Hut, it does it right.
I'm not a huge crust person either.
A non-crust.
Yeah.
Two non-crusters.
Yes, I'm not a
crust guy. I love crust. Yeah.
Noah gave the thumbs up too. It's not that I dislike crust as much, but I'd rather have the cheesy part of the pizza. So if it's like, if the crust isn't very good, like whatever. Catch me after I've eaten enough pizza. I will go cut the stuffed crust off and just eat that. I will leave the rest of the slice in the box. I'm serious. I'm a true stuffed crust lover. And Pizza Hut right now, they're giving away great deals as always. But if you get the pizza melt, it's enough for two, Jack, but it's priced for one.
Damn.
Enough for two, priced for one. And guess what? I'm going to be honest. I might just eat it all myself.
Yeah, no, it's not saying you have to have it for two. Sometimes you just want to be alone.
Sometimes you just want to eat whatever you want in peace, and it's only $6.99. So listen, if I'm going to go out and get a new pizza melt that is priced for one, but good enough for two, it might be just good enough for me. I'm going to pay $6.99 because Pizza Hut knows the damn deal.
Yes, they do.
God, I love Pizza Hut.
Shout out the Hut.
I know we live in New York City, and you've got the best pizza in the world. Well, at least the best pizza in America. I'd say Italy probably has the best pizza in the world.
Yeah, I mean, they do like a different pizza.
We don't have to get into it. But the best pizza places on every single corner, we know that. We obviously work at a company where a man has made a career out of judging pizza. Pizza Hut, it still slaps. Still slaps.
During the Invitational, everyone from upstairs, the third floor, they had to guard the extra melt from everyone in the green room because everyone wanted to grab a bite and was hungry and wanted that food. It smelled great.
God, I'm gonna need pizza tonight. I'm gonna need Pizza Hut.
I think we all are.
So
yeah, I want it right now in my belly.
I like it under protest. That I do not believe that the Big Ten is third, but I was outvoted by you two. So the Big Ten, we are putting at number 3. We are gonna put the Pac-12 at number 2. when I looked at the Pac-12 this season, I do believe within the conference, it was probably the most interesting because so many teams were still in the mix late. I mean, you look just now, Katie, when you had that.
Whoa, okay, here we go. Pitt's head coach. This is from Andrew Filipponi, the Pony Express.
Wow.
Pitt's head coach, Pat Narduzzi, he loves to talk, man.
He loves to talk.
And he's the guy who's like, I hate people. He's probably hates TikTok and all that. He's like, I hate people who like are in attention. He's like the Brandon Walker of the college coaches world, which we love. We love Narduzzi. We love Brandon. Pat Narduzzi says on 93.7 The Fan that he's heard 2 schools offered UNC quarterback Drake May $5 million to transfer. Won't say who. That won't's maybe like a John or like a Pittsburgh, a Yinzer thing. But he knows who. That's hilarious. That's like a girl saying like, I know what you did, but I'm not telling you what you did.
Exactly.
Wow. Says it's gotten out of control and it's only going to get worse. It's a sad, sad deal. Also, we do have to remember Pat Narduzzi had his best wide receiver in a while taken away from him. So that is something of note.
Even as a UNC fan, I see that. I feel no remorse for the coaching staff having to deal with that.
No.
0.
That's what's going to be happening. Unfortunately, if you don't want to get with the times.
You have to be an honest coach.
You have to, and you're going to have to play defense against other coaches now for your best players.
Coach, though,
it does suck, but
that if you're a have-not and you make the right talent read, you don't even get your guy. Like sometimes he'll just go away for $10 million.
It definitely sucks. There's no doubt about it. However,
I'm not saying I would be mad.
You're getting paid millions and millions of dollars. I think,
but they don't have the money to, like, it's a difficult job. Like it's like
a lot just got added to it. But I think for front porch theory, for the amount of money they make, for the amount of people on their team and the standard they're held to, yes, it makes it harder. But I think it's just a reality of the world.
Oh, definitely.
College football. And also, I think it's an advantage for the players at the end of the day. And I still think they're overexploited, even with NIL.
It's going to be interesting. I love that Narduzzi said that was a sad deal.
Yeah. Well, vast majority, I'd still think. I the top of the top who have tens of millions of dollars. But I think for people who are under $1 million who are still starting, like
it's gonna be like you said, Katie, earlier, and we've talked about it. The dust is gonna settle, but Pat Narduzzi being the one to quote that is very funny.
The new playoff model, I think, is projected to have $2.2 billion in valuation.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the we bring this up every year when we start. If you are on the side of paying players and players able to make money, especially before the NIL deals went
they're not
through,
going to be able to pay players though.
No, they're not. But I'm saying like the art. But
Ohio State couldn't.
Everybody always looks at March Madness and says, look how much money the NCAA tournament brings in.
It's like, look how much money so you look at the company, right? It's like, look how much money Apple makes.
Right.
But then once you give it out to all the employees, all your costs, all your whatnot, the money's gone.
Right.
Like there's no money.
So in the NIL deals now,
but it is great. The NIL stuff I think is great.
It's a good way to bridge the between of like guys not being able to make any type of money on their own name versus being paid.
But to Katie's point, it is an exploitive process.
Oh yeah.
That a school gets paid money for a good that the players only returned with for a valued scholarship of around, like some schools only like $100,000 to $150,000.
If even that. I mean,
that's still an exploitive process.
Yes,
obviously
absolutely.
They give goods and whatnot. There's a return, but it's not probably a fair
No, that's why the NIL deals have made it so much better because now guys can at least say, "Oh, it's my name. I can get paid off of my name."
School still isn't paying those.
No. Oh no, it's
but the way they've set it up, it's almost like telling somebody like. It's also tough shit, but like they build all these like the $100 million they're building the new facility for that would have been budgeted to pay players, but now it's like, well, we don't have any money to pay players. We've built stuff for them.
And if we hadn't built that stuff for them, they wouldn't come play for us because it's an arms race with
like
facilities.
But then it's like, but no one would be able to make it. Would be.
I always say it's a hamster wheel type argument because you think you found a resolution to it and it flips you on your head and you can just keep running in the same place.
You're not wrong.
So Pac-12 number 2. I think that we can all agree that within the conference, it was down to the wire, probably the most interesting because of all the teams. I mean, you look at just the final standings on ESPN here. You've got USC, Washington, Oregon, Utah, Oregon State, and UCLA all ranked. A lot of teams that we potentially, I don't think that we expected to be there.
And Wazoo took a step forward.
Yep.
Arizona took a step forward.
Yep.
There was a fall off, though, of the bottom four.
Yeah.
Those teams were bad.
Yes, those are bad. I mean, Cal, Arizona State, Stanford, and Colorado, definitely. Obviously, we're seeing the hype around Colorado now with Dion and those types of guys. However, I think that the Pac-12, for so many years, since, again, we always talk about the podcast lifers, since we've been doing this, it's the forgotten conference. I mean, just the fact that the championship is on Friday night. Usually we're not even talking about it. They're left out of the college football playoff, even though they're not in it this year. Very clearly a conference that we were paying way more attention to. If you're a fan of a Pac-12 team, you're always paying attention to it. But from a national standpoint, what these teams, especially the top 6-7 teams, did for this conference, elevated it in such a great way and also set it up for the future.
That's going to look a lot different.
Right. The thing that sucks is that 2 of those teams that are in those top 6 spots are going to be gone.
Yes, and they're the 2 biggest teams of your interconference.
So
outside, I mean, you can make an argument maybe Oregon's bigger than USC, and there's going to probably be like teams like Oregon and Washington are probably still, they're sending the DMs to the Big Ten or SEC or any other conference, say like, hey, like I know I'm not as hot as you at USC, but like, I still bring the goods. Like,
I got a great personality.
I have a full state behind me, but
and all the money too. I mean, you look at the money that Oregon has. I think that the thing that sucks the most for the Pac-12 now, and if you're a fan of one of the other teams, it's not for sure leaving. It's like you get the hype around the conference, right? You get the hype around it. We're all talking about it. The playoff is about to expand in a couple years. The Pac-12 is kind of the hot person in the streets, and then you lose your 2 top programs. Even if even if UCLA and USC aren't always the best teams on the field, but you're losing the 2 hottest names in the conference at a time when the conference is finally back to being hot in the streets.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating, and then you add the most anticipated college football coach of ever.
Yes, which does help because then it does help. There has never been a guy that I can remember, regardless of our bias, regardless of our friendships and coworkers, whatever. By the way, Dion did make me cry so hard on the show today. Like I'd have Roan finish because he was being so sweet. But that's beside the point. Just forget that I even said that. There's never been a coach that's as day one as anticipated as Deion Sanders in college football. There's just not. You look at Colorado 1-8, they go 1-11 overall. Now you've got that excitement, those expectations, but the Pac-12 is going to look so different in a couple seasons, regardless of what Colorado does, Oregon State, all these different teams, because you're losing the 2 main programs. But in the meantime, the Pac-12 has been so fascinating. And what Lincoln Riley, whether you like Lincoln Riley or not, whether you are a Lincoln Riley hater and you live in Norman, Oklahoma, and you're so happy that he missed the college football playoff, what USC did this year was help re-elevate the Pac-12 again to a national prominence so quickly in year 1 that it made the entire rest of the conference more interesting to watch, because you have a Heisman Trophy winner coming out of USC. You had a Pac-12 championship that desperately mattered for the playoff race. You have teams like Oregon and Oregon State and UCLA that every time they played the USC Trojans, it became a big deal because of what Lincoln Riley did. So you can hate him all you want, but he elevated an entire conference this year.
No, yeah. There was a lot of teams that helped. Like, the battle for LA was very important.
It was such a good game, too.
And
Holy
Dan
shit.
Lanning being such a success after a tough start really helped.
Mm-hmm.
But, Lincoln Riley brought the Pac-12 to a different height this year for sure.
Different height, and the expectations around it will, it's very fascinating to see what'll move forward. And then, of course, the SEC being the number 1 conference. Like I said, I could have made the argument that they were not, just because outside of Georgia, it truly was kind of just like, what the hell's going on? The SEC West, very clearly was a down year. I understand Alabama, lost 2 games very closely. LSU losing to A&M, who was the worst in the SEC West, and then losing the way they did to Georgia in the SEC championship. Outside of Georgia, and Tennessee had a hell of a year. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but the disappointing loss they had against Georgia and then losing to South Carolina the way that they did, it's hard for me to look at the overall conference and say, okay, the SEC is the best conference in the country. However, when you have a team like Georgia and how dominant and how good they are, you cannot ignore that that is a product of this conference and also a product of what Kirby Smart is doing.
But you also have a Tennessee team that was amazing.
Yes.
And then you have a South Carolina team that beat the best team in the ACC.
That's where ACC fans cannot wrap their head around it.
And then you have Florida, who beat the best team in the Pac-12. And you have Kentucky that definitely struggled more than we thought this season. Mizzou took a step forward. Vanderbilt beat Florida. The bottom's not as brutal as it's been before. And then in the West, I still think the West was very good too. Mississippi State was a solid team the entire year. Same with Ole Miss. And then obviously we saw Alabama. They finished 5th, but they were still a really good team. They lost 2 games by a touchdown.
Right. Very close. I will say, so the whole reason I wanted to do this conversation before we really get into bowl season is because what you just talked about with Florida, it's like their bowl game was so fucking bad. Like they just got absolutely murdered by Oregon State. But that to me doesn't say how good or bad of a team they were all season. Like I don't look at it and say, oh my God, Florida State or Florida would be the dead last team in the Pac-12. I don't look at it that way just because of the bowl game, right? I mean, it was a terrible game. Do not get me wrong. Florida going 3-5 in the conference, 6-7 overall, but Florida was a better team than they played in the bowl game.
Yes, no, and I still think there's a lot of sometimes just because a team ends up 7-5, like Kentucky, we say, oh, they're a bad team. They're like Arkansas, we say they go 6-6. Like, oh, they're a bad team. In my opinion, they just aren't that bad. They're still a very high-quality team that I think would have done really well in a conference like the Big 12 or whatnot. So, all that, or the Big 10, like Arkansas, I think could have won the Big 10 West.
So, to recap here on Unnecessary Roughness, we went in order. We ranked the ACC is 5th. The Big 12 is 4th. The Big 10 is 3rd under protest. The Pac-12 is 2nd, the SEC is 1st, and the biggest takeaway that I have after this conversation, we've been having them all year, it's going to continue to happen until we see the expansion. As much fun as these conversations are, trying to figure out which is the better conference, because we're sitting in front of microphones, in front of cameras, sometimes sitting in meeting rooms and committees, trying to make the decision. At the end of the day, these conversations will be able to be played out on the field when the college football playoffs are expanded.
Sounds like you're doing an ad.
I'm doing an ad.
Let
me tell you, let me tell you people. Expansion needs to happen because you don't have to listen to us sit here and decide who the best conferences are. But overall, I think great. We know how great the season was when you look from week 0 to week now. I mean, really, so week 1, week 0 was fine. We were just excited to have it back. A lot of disappointments, a lot of great teams, but Georgia's king. And
while we were sitting here, a 24/7 sports member, Crystal Ball DJ Uiagalelei to Hawaii, which would be certainly something if DJ ended up at Hawaii. It would make he grew up. He played his high school ball in Cali, but I was just surprised. I mean, his brother is one of the big players that is not committed yet. That will commit tomorrow, or he could wait a little bit more. But I think he's going to commit tomorrow.
Do you think that DJ? I mean, I understand like Hawaii would be a fit. But like, he could play somewhere better than Hawaii, right?
Yeah, but I think he's from Hawaii. He spent some time there.
I guess
maybe he just wants
preference.
to go. Yeah. Also, yeah. Timmy Chang's there.
Yeah.
He's their coach. Obviously, a legend of the sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it would be. You would think another school like.
He was
like, why wouldn't the Notre Dame?
Right,
why wouldn't you think Notre Dame would want him?
He was so highly anticipated, and I know we always go back. And I mean, I said this plenty of times, but that game in 2020 when Trevor Lawrence had or didn't have COVID, I don't know. He was on the sidelines. He beat Notre Dame. DJ did. It's just like there's so much anticipation.
It's so funny. He's on his 24/7 sports profile right now. His team, underneath him is just NCAA. He just plays for the NCAA right now.
He's just an NCAA guy. It's like whenever we wear just like NFL hats.
He's just an NCAA.
He's just an NCAA
big,
guy.
strong arm quarterback. Look at his projection, like you're saying, out of high school. He's a top 10 quarterback. But his comparison was Jamarcus Russell. He's also really good at baseball, so maybe he'll like go back to playing baseball.
Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe he goes to the wherever it is, whether it's Hawaii or somewhere else, turns it around and has, look at Michael Penix.
Again, a great natural feel for throwing the football, understands when to take a little off, throws with anticipation, and is a plus athlete as well. I'm sorry. Did we see that once besides the BC Notre Dame game?
No, I would say we saw it at points. He throws a great deep ball. He does. His touch, his accuracy, definitely. You're right. It seems like it's kind of like,
all three levels. Yeah.
His accuracy definitely fell off. I don't know what happened to him. Like, I don't know if it was the yips or whatnot. We saw that
pressure.
We saw that with Zach Wilson. It's like they're like, you see these reports sometimes and they're great, and like they go to these camps, they're just great. And then they just, for whatever reason, they just fall apart.
Could he become the next Michael Penix?
I was like, he could be. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Never know,
like I said, like, look at what Michael Penix did. I do love in here, it says natural leader and a great teammate. That's why Dabo didn't ever want to say he wasn't the starter. So now that he's
even
out
at
of the
the
picture,
end, after Caleb Club then comes in, has like this amazing game.
Yeah.
Dabo
wouldn't do it.
No, in the ACC championship, he had that interview. He was just like, I love my guys. I'm happy for Cade. I mean, he seems like a really good guy.
Whoever their head of media does a fantastic job.
Yeah, and he's very good. And I think he learned a lot from Trevor too. And it's just, he's very gracious. I mean, I'm a fan of DJ. I hope he figures it out. But he just like, every time I gave him another chance, he would just like not be able to throw a ball 8 yards.
This is selfish of me. That's kind of why I don't want to see him at Hawaii, because I'm not watching a lot of Hawaii games.
Oh, I get it.
Like, I'd rather see him at a school that we're going to see him in the prime time for college football. But anyways, so we've gone over what we thought we were going to. We will be back Thursday. It will be Zoom. So you'll have one more episode with us before the holiday. Brandon will hopefully be back, assuming that he makes it out of a blizzard alive, which we do hope and pray for. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Anything else before we get out of here?
Don't think so.
We want the Arizona Bowl's coming up. Like, don't forget about that. We really want Casey, Brandon are going to be a part of it.
Barstool.tv.
Katie will be there. Barstool.tv. It's going to be like, I mean, obviously we're 10 days away, but it's coming up, and we really want to see you watching it. The social coverage is going to be great. I'll be on top of it. Everyone will be there. I'm really excited to see what it looks like, and it's Ohio against Wyoming. Brandon's stuck in Wyoming right now, but if not, he'll make it to the Arizona Bowl.
Hopefully he'll make it there. So the pregame show and halftime show that Brandon and I are a part of is also PFT and Will Compton. You want to talk about a hell of a combination. So the four of us will be doing that. Obviously, Dave, Dan, and Jake on the call, Caleb and Rowan on the sidelines. So it's going to be crazy, but it's awesome. It's the day before the playoff.
Exactly.
So what else do you have to do? I know there's other bowl games that day, but
you can turn on your computer.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Notre Dame, South Carolina, pretty good game. The Mayo Bowl is that day, but listen.
It's after the Mayo Bowl.
Yeah. It's after. So
also, and then it takes you right into Tennessee Clemson.
Yes, it takes you into, which is one of the most anticipated bowls outside of the playoffs. So the Arizona Bowl.
It's a great game, and we can't wait to see to have you guys watch it.
It's gonna be crazy.
They put TV, Barstool, Sports Arizona on ESPN.
Yeah, I love that.
Shout out them.
So we will be there. We'll also be back Thursday. We'll be back with some episodes the week following as well. Hope you guys have a great week. And that is Unnecessary Roughness.